the regular assembly meeting to order for July 29th, 2024. Ms. Atkinson, will you lead us in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Mr. Bryson, would you do the land acknowledgement, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We would like to acknowledge that the city and borough of Juneau is on Tlingit land and wish to honor the indigenous people of this land. For more than 10,000 years, Alaska Native people have been and continue to be integral to the well-being of our community. We are grateful to be in this place, a part of this community, and to honor the traditions and resilience of the Tlingit people. Gunalshish.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Madam Clerk, will you call roll? Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's an echo. Ms. Atkinson.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Walal Kida.
Here.
Ms. Wall.
Present.
Mr. Bryson.
Present.
Ms. Hughes-Scandies and Mr. Smith are not with us this evening. Deputy Mayor Hill
Here.
and Mayor Weldon.
Here.
A quorum is present. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next, we will go to approval of minutes. Ms. Hale.
I move approval of the October 23rd, 2023, November 13th, 2023, and July 2nd, 2024 Assembly meeting minutes, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objections? Seeing none, those minutes are approved. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Ms. Manager, requests for agenda changes. There are a couple.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. I have two requests for agenda changes. If you turn to page 4 of your packet, we'd like to move new business up to immediately follow the staff report. So you will have the staff report titled School Budgets Information from Superintendent Frank Hauser, and then we will move directly into new business and consider Resolution 3068 deappropriating funds for the school district operations. So that is the first agenda change. The second agenda change I'd like to make is item 13, school board recall petitions. There is a new manager's recommendation in the red folder item that will be included as part of the public record. This is an informational item only, so there will be no assembly action required, and the new manager recommendation reflects that.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Public participation on non-agenda items. I'm going to look to the body. We are supposed to limit this to 20 minutes, but we have 13 people. So do we want to give 2 minutes per person or 3 minutes per person? Okay, I'm hearing 2 and 3, so you guys are being 2.5 it is. Thank you. So our first one is, and I apologize for screwing anybody's name up. Bonalyn Parker, please come up to the mic. Yep. And state your name and area of town you live in for the record. And Mr. Barr will help you turn that on. Show you how to do that.
Okay,
And
it's
you
on.
have 2.5 minutes.
All right. My name is Bonalyn Parker. I live in North Douglas. So walking through downtown in the wake of the tragic shooting death of Stephen Kissack, it's clear to me that our town is suffering. This event was traumatizing for everyone involved. Stephen's friends and family, the many eyewitnesses, the businesses with bullet holes in the walls, and the officers involved. I work together with community members to create a statement that encompasses some of the feelings many of us are sharing. It seems worth noting that many businesses and individuals agreed with the statement, but were afraid to add their name out of fear of damaging relationships with the police department and potentially facing retaliation. The following statement has been signed by 16 businesses and 308 community members. That was as of this morning. I've had quite a few more signatures roll in since then, so we're probably closer to 350. Letter says, to the Juneau Assembly, Juneau Police Department, and all community leaders. We, the undersigned, are business owners, workers, and residents of Juneau, writing to express in the firmest and most unequivocal terms that the shooting death of Stephen Kissack by Juneau Police and an Alaska Wildlife Trooper was completely unacceptable. In the days and weeks to come, there will be reports issued and important decisions made about how we move forward as a community. We ask that you approach these decisions and bureaucratic necessities with human life in mind and the spirit of this community at heart. Juneau must not be a place where this kind of thing happens. In Juneau, we treat people with dignity and compassion, and we work to de-escalate and diffuse potentially problematic situations. As a result of this tragedy, members of our downtown community and visitors to our community are experiencing anger, fear, and a loss of trust. We must work to restore that trust and make Juneau a place where people can live safely and without fear. Moving forward requires clear communication, honest self-reflection, and transparency from the CBJ and JPD on this issue as they work to rebuild our community trust. We all need the right tools to do our jobs. We should determine what tools, training, and support our police need to better assess the risks and react to complex situations with the safety of the whole community in mind. Please help us make sure that this will never happen again on our streets. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. So the buzzer goes off at 2 minutes, and you had 30 seconds, so perfect timing. So I appreciate the statement. Any questions for Ms. Parker? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Jessica Gray. And the mic is already turned on, so just please state your name and area, town you live in for the record.
Jessica Gray, Juneau, Alaska. I appreciate being able to address the Assembly today on behalf of NAMI Juneau, the National Alliance for Mental Illness in Juneau. Stephen Kissack's death has greatly impacted the mental health of our entire community. To Stephen's friends and family, those who witnessed the shooting in person and online, as well as the police officers involved and their families, our hearts are with you. After witnessing this public violent death, there has been a shift in the sense of safety and security in our community. Juneau residents, and especially our unhoused community members, have an increased sense of vulnerability and fear that something similar might happen to them or one of their loved ones. We know the path forward isn't going to be easy, but there has to be a systemic change to ensure that this tragedy does not happen again. NAMI Juneau would like for the Assembly to enact a well-rounded plan that addresses the lack of emergency housing and low-cost housing. Additionally, Juneau needs a plan that includes intensive training that improves officer knowledge and attitude about mental health. We are not expecting our officers to be mental health providers, but we do expect that they know when to call mental health services so that mental health providers may respond to help keep people with mental illness out of jail or worse and on the road to recovery. This cannot happen without a community-wide crisis plan. NAMI Juneau recently addressed the Assembly about the closure of Bartlett's Youth Crisis Stabilization Services and the failure to provide adult services. The Crisis Now model cannot be implemented without a location to house services such as these. This model doesn't work if it is only partially implemented. NAMI Juneau strongly advocates for a plan that shows the Assembly's commitment to restoring the mental wellness of our community and prioritizing mental health care. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Gray? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have John Covington. And the mic is on. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
My name is John Covington. I'm going to tell you first off, I am a priest of the Most High Living God, Jesus Christ. I am a bishop of your soul, and the Lord Jesus sent me here to speak to you because this cop incident is not the only incident that's going on. Let me read it to you real quick. On 21st July 2024, which is on a Sunday, I, John Covington, went to the gold panning place where the Alaska Travel Adventures Company bring their cruise ship tours to gold pan at the end of Basin Road, which is by the bridge. Immediately, one of their employees started treating me very evil in front of all the tours that he brought there in the company's van. He told them I was three things: that I was very evil, insulting, it showed disrespect to me, it dishonored me, and it destroyed my character. He said that I was three things: a claim jumper, which shows us all that he really doesn't know the laws, statutes, or judgments of this community. And a criminal, because I was getting the sand out of the boxes their company places there for people to gold pan in. And that I was homeless. I told him I was not homeless. He said that I was lying because he sees me walking everywhere. Therefore, first of all, I would like to set the record straight. I'm not homeless because I live on a boat at Harris Harbor. I've been living there for many years. By the way, I own 2 boats are at Harris Harbor. But what's that got to do with anything? This wicked and evil attitude towards homeless people as being promoted throughout our community needs to be talked about and to be quenched. We don't need to promote wicked and evil thinking towards homeless people. If the leaders of this community don't stomp it out, then evil sinners will rise up and end up murdering homeless.
Mr. Covington, you've hit your mic. You have to turn it back on. So hit the little red button at the bottom. There you go. You can keep
Okay. This weekend is the same propaganda Hitler's Nazi party promoted to brainwash the German citizens into murdering the Jews. It starts out a small thing, but it blooms into something so big, it'll take a generation or more to stomp out. The leaders of our community need to rise up publicly and acknowledge that we as a people need to promote loving kindness, respect towards one another, honor one another, and to create a culture of life, not death, which is what's going on right now. Because people have such a hatred towards homeless and poor
Mr.
people.
Covington, your time is up. Could you wrap it up?
Okay. Well, you know what? I left I'll leave this with you. I got my name, phone number, and email on it. So you guys can read it later.
Okay, thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Covington? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Doreen Lorenz. The mic is still on. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
Doreen Lorenz, I live in the Valley. Hi, everyone. I have just recently returned from America 250, which is a national initiative enacted by Congress to celebrate the founding of our nation, which has staked 9 tent poles. And I want to talk to you about one tonight that I think is going to potentially have a huge impact on Juneau. It's called America Gives. It is a multi-year, year-round effort focused on charitable giving, volunteer service, and public service, which includes military service. On August 1st, this national website will have a section go live that features semi-sesquicentennial branded projects in each state. It is one-stop shopping for individuals, corporations, and foundations who are interested in funding semi-sesquicentennial projects. Everything from public art to activities, workshop speakers, scholarships, you name it. Here in Alaska, we are looking at proposing the renovation of a historic baseball field and a paddle wheel steamship in Fairbanks, and the construction of the Alaska Long Trail, a $20 million, 500-mile braided multi-use trail system from Seward to Fairbanks that allows for motorized and non-motorized water and railroad use, so you can ride a 3-wheeler, dirt bike, snow machine, or a horse, walk, run, or cycle and kayak, and get between Fairbanks and Seward. Thus far in Juneau, we have 3 memorials lined up, but there is certainly room at the table for significantly more capacity. Americans are going to be strongly encouraged to travel around the country to engage in semi-sesquicentennial branded service projects like the Alaska Long Trail, and those who complete 100 hours of documented service get a certificate signed by the President. I attended a session run by Meta, the owners of Facebook and Instagram, who's doing all of the social media for America 250. One thing that caught my attention, the National Park Service is planning an initiative that strongly encourages visitation to all of America's national parks. There is another well-funded, well-organized initiative where people will be encouraged to visit all of the states, including state capitals. There is both national and international marketing efforts planned. If the numbers suggested to me at the convening of the states in Washington, D.C. are anywhere near close to correct, Alaska could see an additional 500,000 to 1 million visitors in 2026. That is a huge number. We need to determine when America comes knocking on our front door if we're going to be prepared to take advantage of this opportunity of abundance. I would highly recommend that Juneau pass a resolution and become a 250 city so it has access to the same resources that other state capitals are currently taking advantage of in their preparation for the celebration.
Ms. Lorenz, your time's up, so you could wrap
As
up.
is my speaking. Thank you so much.
Any questions for Ms. Lorenz? The city manager and I are meeting, I believe, with you on August 1st. So if any two of you want to join us, you're welcome to. Next, we have Carl Burns. And the mic is on, so please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
For the record, it's Kurt Burns,
Oh, I'm
C-U-R-T-N, and I live here in downtown Juneau. I want to start off by thanking JPD and Alaska State law enforcement for the most part keeping our city safe. I've worked downtown, I've lived downtown, and I've witnessed situations being de-escalated in a more efficient and calming manner. And this was an isolated incident at 1:30 in the afternoon with tourists around that I don't believe is a pattern of behavior and how this community wants to move forward. And so I just want to express my support for this community, and I believe that I can speak for pretty much everyone else here, that we are going to get through this together, and nobody's to blame. It's an unfortunate incident, and we'll get through this.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Burns? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Next we have, I believe it's James Thayer. Okay, well, if he comes back, let us know. And then we have Marco Hernandez. And the mic is on, so please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
My name is Marco Hernandez. I live in South Douglas by way of Phoenix, Arizona. I came here in May and I had a backpack and a one-way ticket, and I just wanted to just enjoy what it is that brings Alaska to Alaska. You know, I gave a shot, but I work at the Crystal Saloon, and I saw a gunshot, you know, I saw everything that happened, and I just want to just make a point to say that I've dealt with that man before. Okay, I've only been here, and I can't imagine what you guys are all going through. I just want you to understand that Phoenix PD is the most murderous police department in the entire country, and that's objectively speaking. It was okay. I don't blame anybody. I understand what had to happen, but that man was running for his life. Okay, and I need you all to understand that what I saw was not okay. I tried my best to like put it down, and I kept thinking that like maybe it just, I kept explaining to myself over and over what the difference was, but I'm telling you guys, what I saw was a man running for his life. Okay, and I just need the city council and the mayor, and thank you guys for hearing me out. I'm still dealing with it, and I'm telling you that I really hope that this city heals because I fell in love with your town. I love you guys. I really truly believe that you guys are trying your best and everyone's trying their best, but I believe that we can do better. I believe that that man was having a bad day. I understand. Looked at as somebody that's danger, but that wasn't dangerous. I mean, he's walked our bartenders. Sorry, he's walked our bartenders like to their cars. And I don't know his whole story. I don't know anyone's story, but I'm just telling you right now that what I saw was something that was not okay, and I just want you to understand I feel your pain, Juno. I really do. Okay. I just got here, so thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for Mr. Hernandez? Testimony tonight. Next, we have, and I'm not sure if it's non-agenda or not, William Horton is a non-agenda, or are you talking about an agenda item? The mic is on, so please state your name and area.
My name is William Horton, and I'm here to talk about Dawson Harbors and how I was treated. I became homeless May 13th. My boat burned up in Douglas Harbor. And then I bought another boat. But Dawson Harbor gave me a lot of barriers to run through. And then they offered their condolences for my son. And they told me they're going to impound my boat in 10 days. And then the other person said that they're going to charge me daily rates until everything's paid. But I'm living at Mineral Campgrounds right now because it's the only place I can find right now because there's no place to rent here in Juneau in my price range. But having Dawson Harbors tell me that, then offer their condolences to my son, it didn't sit well with me at all, period. I think they could have done a better job to help the homeless people, not just giving, they gave me so many barriers. And, my boat was supposed to be impounded tomorrow again, but I'm at a pre-impoundment hearing set for August 7th. But I didn't like that, what Dawson Harbor did to me. And I know they're very unfriendly to liveaboards. I've been living in the harbors for 11 years. And always had my stall rental on time. Never a problem. For 11 years, and that should count for something. But it doesn't seem to count for anything. Along the way, my son died May 18th here in Juneau. And then July 19th, I had my brother die. And we're still working on all those funerals. But that's a separate issue. But I just want to know what you guys want to do about that, Dawson Harbors. And, that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, and we're sorry to hear about your son. To everybody else, would you please silence your phones? Thank you. Next, we have Salome Starbuck. The mic is on, so please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2.5 minutes.
This statement was co-written by Casit Owen Cruz and myself, Salome Starbuck. I live in Douglas. Our community has just been traumatized by a reckless act of violence. By executing Stephen Kissack in the street, the JPD, and by extension this assembly, has shown clear disregard for the value of a human life. While I, Salome Starbuck, was not a direct eyewitness present at the scene, I have heard eyewitness testimony that Stephen was not escalated at the scene, but at least one of the officers there was highly escalated. I have heard witness testimony that Stephen was trying to run from the police with his hands in the air while shouting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." This is recorded on video. Regardless of Steve's actions on Monday, there was no need for this senseless murder or of a member of our community. We have potentially witnessed a failure to de-escalate a person in crisis. In my Owen Cruz career with the Juneau School District, I was taught about the crisis cycle and how to avoid escalation. Any one of my peers could have used that training to calm Mr. Kissack if he was, in fact, the person needing de-escalation. There never needed to be a standoff. There never needed to be a death. The JPD, by their presence, with firearms pointed, clearly escalated the situation. Not only did they escalate the situation by the presence of lethal force, they themselves were escalating. The JPD surrounded Mr. Kissack, leaving him no avenue of egress. He ran from those that shot him with so-called less lethal rounds and found himself victim to the law enforcement officers behind him. There are many examples of other communities who have successfully implemented crisis task units employing the skills of mental health providers to respond to calls involving at-risk and vulnerable members of a community, which clearly an unhoused person qualifies as, to de-escalate and avoid these precise kinds of unnecessary deaths. We believe it is time for the JPD to be accountable for the unnecessary violence it commits in this town. We also believe the Assembly should assess the need of their police force to show up willing to use lethal force. These are our friends and neighbors.
Ms. Starbuck.
Surely we can and must find a better way. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Starbuck? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Next, we have Rowena Brockway.
Good evening.
So the mic is on. Please state your name and area town you live in for the
My
record.
name is Rowena Brockway. I reside in downtown Juneau. I didn't prepare anything this evening, and I just can't tell you how upset I've been since this happened with Steve Kissack. I suffer from complex PTSD from birth. I'm Alaska Native, German, Scottish, and one of the things the police force needs to know is that our Native people were born with this trauma from our relatives and ancestors, what was done to them from colonization. We have intergenerational trauma coursing through our veins. Watching this that night when it happened, it was posted on Facebook with no warning. I just saw it. And I watched it over and over and over. I saw Steve Kissack with his hands up. He had a gun in his, the knife in his hand, but I understand he often played with his knife. I know people are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Our officers are not the judge, jury, and executioner all in one, and that's what I saw. I saw a man executed. I saw his hands up and the police screaming, "I will shoot you," over and over and over. He got shot in the torso that they're trained to do, which I don't understand, because I have brought non-lethal restraints such as the net gun. They cost $994. The nets are reusable. I brought Bola Wrap, which is a 7-foot plus Kevlar lasso that's weighted that they can bring them down with, that wraps around them. These should be used nationwide. I am just disgusted with what happened here. It was reckless, unacceptable murder. And it's happening all over this country. This isn't the country I grew up in. I was born 1966 on 6th Street. My mother is full Tlingit. We have different values than the Western values. And I believe I was very upset to see a JPD new recruit from Alabama on board now. I would like to see cultural training, non-lethal restraint devices such as these, which I've brought a copy for you, independent investigations whenever there is a brutality or murder by our officers, outside and inside oversight over JPD and LCCC. I've experienced maltreatment from both JPD and LCCC, and when this happened, it bubbled up my PTSD. I wanted to go drink.
Brockway, your time is up.
Yes. So I have filed a complaint against LCCC and my public defender for various reasons. And I really would like to see something done about this. And here are the copies for the Bola Wrap and the net gun.
Thank you for those.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Phil Moser. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 2.5 minutes.
Okay. My name is Phil Moser. I live in the Valley. I didn't want to be here today. The last time I was here testifying to the Assembly, it was for the Assembly to take action against the violence that we saw around the world. The Assembly said that that was too far away and that we had to focus on internal issues. 4 years ago, I was here in front of the Assembly in the height of Black Lives Matter, testifying that police do not need to be and are in fact harmful with this close of proximity to vulnerable populations, that if we continue to have our funding set towards the police instead of mental health services, instead of housing services, that we would see antagonization of homeless populations. What's happened since then? The Black Lives Matter group at the time had an 8 Can't Wait campaign. JPD asserted that their training and their capabilities were a cut above what we saw around the rest of the country, that they didn't need any of that. The Assembly took them at their word and also didn't take any of the recommendations to reallocate some of that funding towards mental health services, towards housing, towards anything of that sort. And you've stepped up into that role here now. This is a policy choice. It was a policy choice for Steve to be murdered like this. Everything from that initial encounter that the police were there looking for, him being in a doorway, to what happened on the street. We had most of the members of JPD at the time were veterans of the force that are supposed to have had that training. They were also here when Troy Wilson in 2011 said that he would kill every person nearby, every police member, and shot hundreds of bullets towards JPD, and they were able to take him in correctly. And at the moment, y'all waited for Grants Pass decision to be made and let the summer camp go without anything happening. And so we're seeing issues like this. We're seeing issues like what's happening over the Glory Hall happen. And that's on your watch right now. That is on you. So if you want things to be different, here's some things to do. I want to see the full release of the body cam footage from the start of the encounter towards the end for Stephen Kissack. I want a community action council with full transparency, with subpoena powers, with immunity from retaliation, in charge of overlooking the police. I also want to see a reallocation of JPD funds, including the funds that right now are being used to further make the police unaccountable by encrypting their communications for the radio station, reallocated towards mental health crisis teams and other services that make it so something like this would never have happened in the first place.
Mr. Moser, your time is up. You can wrap up. We will take a 5-minute recess.
Madam Mayor, we didn't get a chance to ask Mr. Moser any questions. I'm not sure if, I would like to ask him a question if he's willing to stay before we recess.
Mr. Moser, would you come back up and answer questions? To the audience, please refrain from clapping. That's not fair to someone that you don't agree with. Mr. Moser.
Mr. Moser, I know you came prepared with a list of actions, and we ran out of time before hearing perhaps the full list. Are there more items on the list that you would like to propose?
Absolutely. So, I mean, those were the three main things. But as part of the 8 Can't Wait campaign, we have several other options. So some of those I could pull up. But when it comes to reallocating funds, this is something that's happening right now and it's been really important. So we've been seeing a very steady amount going to JPD, increasing every year. We've seen bonuses, including, what is it now, $30,000 as a sign-on bonus for JPD, at the very least. That money could be going towards different setups that we have a backbone for. Some of those include, we have the care team in town to help with people that are inebriated on the street. That is a team that does not require police services, does not require lethal weapons, it does not require any weapons at all. We're also doing this in the midst of defunding the hospital, including mental health services. The crisis care center is closing basically before it even opened. Right now, the Glory Hall is in a period of transition. And at the same time, with Grants Pass, with the ability to criminalize people for being homeless, for being on public land, that needs to change. I have multiple other things, but I would also like to see full transparency when it comes to what the police are being allocated, including things like the assembly here was caught off guard with a $300,000 grant purchase of a Bearcat vehicle by JPD. That had zero transparency. So as a civilian oversight council should be able to subpoena that and find those types of funding. We should be able to get public access to police disciplinary records. We should be able to get public access to hiring and firing. In 2022, there was a case where police were called to a mental health crisis in a trailer park in the Valley for a gentleman with suicidal ideation. One of the cops present fired his gun at that person, which struck at least one, if not two, occupied trailers nearby. We did not get any body cam footage of why that happened. That person was taken into custody, but was not charged with anything. They were not armed. They were not threatening. They had called for a mental health crisis. And around 2 or 3 months later, that police officer announced that he was resigning from JPD, but we were not privy to why that was or what led to that. If there was any sort of internal investigation, if there's any sort of disciplinary action, if there was any sort of push to move him out, the public was not privy to that at all. So the more that we have public oversight, the more that we have a reallocation of funds, the more that we have a city that's built around helping the people that live here and helping the most vulnerable populations. And I'm saying this at the same time that Sonia Massey was also murdered by the police down south. So Black Lives Matter is part of this. It is part of a system where we are working towards helping the most marginalized in our community and taking away the ability to antagonize, hurt, or kill them. If there's any other questions, I would love to have those.
Any more questions? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Moser. All right, next we have Jamie Ann. I apologize, Jamie Ann Sultan. The mic is on. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
Gyda'r Chish, Llynget Caynod, Acton, you had Dewis Hawk, my Llynget name, it's Acton. My taxpayer's name is Jamie Ann Hasselquist. I know many of you here on this assembly. I'm many things, I guess, in the community. One of them is an activist. Being Tlingit and born and raised here on this land, I've never seen anything like this happen in our community, and I didn't think that I would. Stop, or I will shoot. Stop, or I will shoot. Does that sound like a defensive tactic to you? Not once did I hear the JPD officers say, drop that weapon, kick it towards me. Instead, I heard over and over, stop or I will shoot you. Right above the street on Front Street is a door that says violence prevention with Hattush Lashish, where I'm currently employed. I was at Rosebud Reservation and on my way home when this happened. And all I could think of was my coworkers, this tragic event. And were my coworkers there? Did they see what happened? And I just felt so much for the community and for Stephen and for his family. This was a reckless shooting. There were 2 businesses in Juneau that received bullets. One of them was Sam Shakely's business. If he was in his doorway, he too may have been shot. There was another employee that reported that they had a bullet enter their business at Devil Club Brewing right downtown. Our community is grieving right now. We've been visiting the site, the memorial site, every day and just offering an ear, offering prayer and song and taking care of the memorial site, offering food to our friends on Front Street who are grieving. And I can really feel the passion, the fear, the grief, and the unstableness in them and the rest of our community. We really need some healing. I'd really like to see the city and borough of Juneau step up and offer the community some grieving sessions on your dollar bill. I'd also like to ask about the memorial site that we have been caring for because within the past 2 days, somebody has disassembled it. I've been told to contact and direct all questions to Robert Barr. So Robert Barr, sitting on the side of me here, I'd just like to know what's going on with that memorial site. Why was it dismantled? Because I feel that it's intimidation. I feel it's disrespectful at this time of grief, and we will take care of it. So just needing to know what we need to do to be able to continue with that memorial site. And I'd just like to announce that Stephen Kisak's family, their heart pours out to the community. They say they've been receiving an overwhelming amount of support and response. They can see why their brother loved it here so much, and they will be here. And we will hold a memorial service for them. And I did send information to ask for the street to be blocked off so that we can hold it in that space. Ganesh Chish, I just really, again, want to emphasize on that community healing and us coming together, and that the police department shows up in a way that's going to be very respectful. Ganesh Chish.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Josh Fortenberry. Fortenberry. So the mic is on. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record.
Good evening, Josh Fortenberry. I live in the Valley. I'm here tonight. I don't have prepared remarks either, but in solidarity with Stephen Kissack, an unhoused man who many people in the community know struggled with mental health, who many people in the community know tended to habitually play with a knife when he sat on the street, who was obviously scared and didn't know how to react to people yelling at him and pointing guns at him, and was ultimately killed. I'm here in solidarity with everyone who witnessed it, who saw the video, the businesses that were shot, the businesses that are nervous now to maybe call for help because they're worried that guns will be fired. And I'm just hoping that we can find a way to get back to a place of trust. In a community like this, I don't think it serves anyone to be nervous about calling on the folks who are supposed to protect and serve. And so if people are afraid of their own police department, it's going to be very difficult to de-escalate or respond to crime or know who we can turn to if you're nervous or scared. So I would like to echo calls to have better mental health training for police officers, to direct more funding to people who can respond to mental health crises without guns, and just better sort of community policing. Again, this person was a known quantity. I saw him around town all the time. He's been here quite a while. And I don't think anyone saw him as a threat, but they know that he struggled. And I don't think he was treated with dignity when he was shot. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Did James Thayer show up? Nope. Okay, so that will conclude our public testimony on non-agenda items. Thank you all for your testimony tonight. It is a tragic incident for the whole community, and we grieve along with you. Mr. Barr, can you help with some folks here are suffering? Can you help with some places they may go?
Sure, Madam Mayor. I'll also just note, since it was asked of me specifically, I'm not aware of any CBJ action to remove any of the items as of this moment at that shrine. And specifically in answer to your question, Madam Mayor, and I think probably many of the people in the room are aware of some of these services already, but NAMI Juneau at juneaumentalhealth.org hosts a website that lists all of the mental health services available for adults and youth that are available in the community by all providers. Those include screening and assessment services, individual group and family therapy services, crisis stabilization and assessment, case management, recovery support, education, and a variety of others, both services provided by organizations and private providers. So for folks struggling, juneaumentalhealth.org is a good resource.
Thank you, Mr. Barr. Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. session. Now we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any public requests for consent agenda changes other than ordinances for introduction? Are there any assembly requests for consent agenda changes? Seeing none, assembly action, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the consent agenda as written, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, the consent agenda is passed. That moves us to public hearing, item 7, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And as I remember to put my microphone close to my mouth, I will remind all of us who have microphones when we're speaking to do so. Ordinance 2024-11, an ordinance authorizing the port director to negotiate and execute a lease of Alaska Tidelands Survey number 750 for the purpose of waterfront commercial activities.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
This is a new 35-year lease agreement with the Trucano Family LLC. This property is located near 3560 North Douglas Highway. Prior to the existing lease expiring, the Trucano Family LLC requested the CBJ continue leasing the property, which originated from a 55-year lease with the state of Alaska. The fair market value of this parcel was appraised at $11,267 per year. At the May 30th regular meeting, the Docks and Harbors Board recommended the Assembly continue leasing the property with a 35-year term and an automatic additional 35-year term. As currently written, this lease provides for a 35-year maximum term, that's in Section 2B. At the end of that term, the Assembly and lessee can determine if this parcel should be leased again. The Lands, Housing, and Economic Development Committee considered this ordinance at its July 15th meeting and forwarded it to the Assembly with the 35-year maximum term. The Systemic Racism Review Committee revised this ordinance at its June 18th, 2024 meeting and had the following comment for the Assembly. The SRC remains concerned and interested in the systemic process by which the CBJ disposes of and leases land, particularly long-term leases, and believes CBJ should strive towards further opportunities for public engagement and involvement in those processes. I recommend the Assembly adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. We have 2 people signed up to testify for this one. First, we have McHugh Pierre. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My name is McHugh Pierre. I reside in West Juneau, and I'll be brief. I support consecutive lease opportunities when a Tideland lease is issued for 35 years. Having the opportunity to renew that lease automatically allows for greater economic certainty. I encourage you to look at all of the aspects of the community and create as much certainty as possible. Allowing certainty to exist allows risk to be removed, and it allows investment to occur. So thank you very much for that consideration, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Any questions from Mr. Pierre? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Jeff Trucano. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes, and the mic is off right now. There you go.
Thank you. My name is Jeff Trucano. I live in the Salmon Creek area. When we originally applied for this lease with the state of Alaska, the term was for 55 years with an option to renew for an additional 55 years. We have since developed the land and built a business with this time frame in mind. If the city decides to move forward with putting a maximum of 35 years with no options to renew, this will create a small parcel of property which is landlocked between private property and another Tideland lease that is renewable. I have heard the term automatic renewal brought up both at the LHED committee meeting and on the agenda for tonight. The draft lease that Docks and Harbors put together, nowhere was the word automatic renewal used. What we are asking for is some kind of assurance that in the future there will be an option to discuss renewal with the city. just as I'm sure many other leaseholders would like to see. And a lease that is written similar to many other lease renewals that Docks and Harbors has put together. Ordinance 2016-05 and 2016-33, for example, both say one 35-year renewal option subject to city and borough approval. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Trucano? Thank you for your testimony. Is there any other members of the audience that wish to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, we will bring it back to the assembly, but I'm going to, whoops, not pass my mic, but pass my gavel, thank you. Because I would move ordinance 2024-11 and add an amendment. And everybody has the amendment that I'm trying to add, so I'll read it. It goes on page 2 of 3 of the ordinance on line 18. It would replace section B, and it says, the current lease shall be for a maximum term of 35 years, CBJ Code 53.20.80. The parties, upon mutual agreement and by ordinance, may execute one additional lease for a maximum term of 35 years. And I ask for unanimous consent if there's no questions.
Mr. Kelly,
Thank
you
you.
have an objection.
Just for the purposes of a question.
Thank you.
So in the language, it says one additional lease. So would that just because they're only negotiating a one lease at a time, or would that preclude them from in the future, again, asking for renewal?
Madam Mayor.
It just says one because they can do one additional lease and then they have to come back and go through the whole process again, according to my attorneys.
Thank you. I withdraw my objection.
Thank you. Are there any objections to Madam Mayor's amendment? Seeing no objections, that amendment passes. Are there any objections to Madam Mayor's original motion? Oh, or do I hand the gavel back to you now?
No, I made the motion. So
Oh, are there, Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Just for a quick comment, and then I'll remove my objection. Just noting the note from the SRRC here. I think even after being here on the Assembly for 4 years, I too remain concerned and interested in the systemic processes by which CBJ disposes of and leases land. I feel like every time one of these issues come up to us, it becomes one of the harder, trickier things we have to figure out. And I think the enterprise boards are different and different departments are different. So just a note that I do think if LHED ever has time on their agenda to kind of think holistically about what our code says about how we do this and make sure it is fair and equitable across the board would be something good to do in the future. And with that, I remove my objection.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Are there any other members of the Assembly? I would also like to sort of build upon what Ms. Wall has said. At some point in the past, there was some work on our code that addresses leases, and then that was set aside. And I think that at some point in the not too distant future, it would be really good for an assembly to pick that back up again and really dig in and make sure that it is consistent and equitable. So thank you. I have no objection in that. That ordinance passes. Madam Mayor, handing it back to you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It will be your turn here again shortly. With that, we will move to sorry, there's too many agendas today. We have changed our agenda several times. There we go. Item 8, Madam Clerk.
Madam Mayor, just to clarify, Ms. Hale, was that passed by unanimous consent?
Yes, Madam Clerk, that was passed by unanimous consent.
Thank you very much. As amended.
As amended, thank you.
Mayor, I thought we were unanimously consenting to the amendment, I don't feel like I've approved the motion. Or
She did the amendment and then she did the motion. And you
oh, I
did not
misheard.
object at
Okay,
that time.
sorry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor and Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2024-12, an ordinance authorizing the port director to negotiate and execute a lease of Alaska Tideland Survey 842, tracks A and B for the purpose of waterfront commercial activities.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. This is a very similar manager's recommendation, so I'm going to attempt to paraphrase. This is an adjacent piece of property located near 3560 North Douglas Highway. The Trucano Family LLC has requested a new lease. I'll go ahead and read the first part so I don't get anything wrong. This is a new 35-year lease agreement with Trucano Family LLC. Property is located near 3560 North Douglas Highway. The existing 55-year lease expires on August 18th, 2026. However, Trucano Family LLC is requested to place ATS 842 and ATS 750 on the same adjustment of rental schedule. Trucano Family LLC is vacating 2 years of lease opportunity under this new lease agreement. The fair market value of this parcel was appraised at $20,909 per year. At the May 30th regular meeting, Docks and Harbors Board made the same recommendation as the last lease. They recommended the Assembly continue leasing the property with a 35-year term and an automatic additional 35-year term. However, as currently written, this lease provides for a 35-year maximum term. At the end of that term, the Assembly and lessee can determine if the parcel should be leased again. The Land, Housing, and Economic Development Committee considered this ordinance at its July 15th meeting and forwarded it to the Assembly with a 35-year maximum term. The Systemic Racism Review Committee reviewed this ordinance at its June 18th meeting and shared the same comment that you have seen on other lease proposals, that they remain concerned and interested in the systemic processes by which the CBJ disposes of and leases land, particularly long-term leases, and believe CBJ should strive towards further opportunities for public engagement and involvement in those processes.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Mr. Trucano, do you want to testify on this one also? Okay, thank you. Does anybody else in the audience want to testify on this ordinance? With that, I'm handing the gavel back over to the Deputy Mayor. And I move ordinance 2024-12 and offer an amendment. The amendment is the same as the last one. Current lease shall be for a maximum term of 35 years. CBJ Code 53.20.080, the parties upon mutual agreement and by ordinance may execute one additional lease for a maximum term of 35 years. Again, it's on page 2 of the ordinance, and line 18 replaces subsection B. So, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Are there any objections to that amendment? Seeing no objections, the amendment passes. Are there any objections to the ordinance? Ordinance 2024-12. Seeing no objections, ordinance 2024-12 as amended passes.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Manager. Next, we have item 9. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is ordinance 2024-09, version B, an ordinance amending the parking notice requirements, Parking Management Advisory Committee, and penalties related to parking violations.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
With the new parking management system installed in the CBJ parking garages, CBJ staff identified a need for parking code amendments that would do 3 things. First, this ordinance would repeal the requirement to have a parking management advisory committee, which has not met for a number of years. Second, this ordinance would repeal an outdated and inconsistent 1971 law, City and Borough of Juneau Code 72-22-045, that requires parking tickets to be placed on a car. Since 1971, Alaska Law Civil Rule 4H and CBJ Code 330-075B have been amended to allow parking tickets to be served via certified mail or by placing the ticket on the vehicle. Third, this ordinance would create a tiered parking penalty structure in the parking garages because the existing $25 parking penalty is not enough of a deterrent for rental car companies illegally occupying spaces. The Assembly amended this ordinance on July 1, reducing the second offense for a 72-14-020 violation from $50 to $35. Due to a lack of quorum, the Systemic Racism Review Committee did not review this ordinance prior to public hearing. I recommend you adopt this ordinance.
Thank you, Madam Manager. No one has signed up to testify on this ordinance. Does any member of the audience want to testify on this ordinance? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the Assembly. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly adopt ordinance 2024-09B, an ordinance amending the parking notice requirements, Parking Management Advisory Committee, and penalties related to parking violations. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Any objection? Seeing none, that ordinance passes. Next, we go to staff reports. Madam Manager, we are starting with the school budget, correct?
Thank you, Mayor Weldon. We only have one staff report, and I would like to invite Superintendent Hauser to share a brief presentation that is in your red folder that will help explain the following resolution, which is de-appropriating a little over $4 million from the school district budget.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Mr. Hauser.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly. My name is Frank Hauser, Superintendent of the Juneau School District. I believe we're going to try to get the slides up in just a second so I can. Perfect. So after years of deficit spending and audit identified deficits, the Juneau School District is repositioned on firm financial footing with the promise of increased academic opportunities for students through consolidation. I'm going to give a brief summary this evening of where we are. But first, I'd like to thank everyone who has engaged in fact-based conversations and to ask for everyone's continued help in spreading the facts. A series of historical facts contributed to the culminating crisis in FY24. Since 2000, JSD has lost 1,533 students, 27% of its student population. The only change to the district's footprint since 2000 was the addition of a high school. The district has lost nearly $8.5 million in state foundation funding since 2017. Declining enrollment, inflation, and nearly flat state funding stretch resources and staffing, affecting academic opportunities for students. That last one is really important. For anyone who might think that things in schools had been status quo since they graduated or their kids did, the reality is that change had already come to JSD. High schools, separately, could no longer offer a full slate of in-person classes. Board President Sorensen had shared that her son graduated from JD in 2008 when there were more than 75 regular classroom teachers providing scheduled classes. That number had shrunk to 46 teachers between our two high schools. Even after the pandemic, schools had 100 or more students taking online classes each semester to earn the credits they wanted or needed to graduate. And students, some freshmen and sophomores, had free periods because there were no classes available for them to take. These facts cannot be ignored. They are symptoms of a larger demographic change across the state, changes that aren't reversing in the foreseeable future. The district had largely maintained the same infrastructure despite a near 30% enrollment decline and near flat state funding for almost a decade. And the district has been operating at a deficit for years. Here's the former CBJ city manager almost 2 years ago talking about the serious budget challenges facing the district. Next slide, please. And that deficit compounded over the years to where we entered things this year, or last year. Last November, the audit identified a near $2 million carryover deficit for FY23. In January, after the audit, a school finance specialist identified a series of errors in the FY24 budget, adopted in the spring of 2023, including a significant overstatement of revenue and understatement of expenses. The identified deficit in FY24, coupled with the carryover deficit from FY23, presented a structural deficit looming for FY25. The FY25 deficit was further challenged by a 3.4% reduction in projected enrollment, 140 students, and increased contractual staffing and fixed costs. These budgetary facts are realities, and they required immediate board action. By May, the board had completed a budget revision to balance those historical deficits and also submitted a balanced budget to the Assembly for FY25. How was that possible, one headline asked? Which is a remarkable question because by law, every district must submit a balanced budget. The district had no choice but to balance the FY24 budget and submit a balanced budget for FY25 to the City and Borough of Juneau by April 5th. But I'm happy to answer that question. It's possible because we brought the problem into the light, we came together to address it, and we worked really, really hard. But I'm also happy to answer that question because it's possible because the board and administration took immediate action to implement measures to address the deficits and conducted an unprecedented public outreach campaign to garner community input on the path forward. Hardworking and committed teachers, principals, administrators, and support and other staff stepped up during a hiring freeze, an aggressive operational savings effort, and arguably the single most important piece in turning the financial corner was the support of our partners, especially of CBJ and the CBJ Assembly. I would also like to recognize the parents and community members who from the start were engaged in the process and actively working with and supporting the district in finding a solution to what has been described as the worst budget crisis in the history of the Juneau School District. These highlighted asterisks were some of the immediate measures the board and administration adopted in January. And you see here the savings realized from these measures. The district asked DEED for a review and received additional state funding for intensive needs students in March. This decreased the state foundation overstatement in the original budget from spring 2023 by $418,000. The district had more resignations than expected since December, coupled with the hiring freeze, which resulted in a reduction in staffing expenditures of $2.4 million. The district was able to realize a savings of $425,000 from the freeze on supply purchases, travel, and operational savings, plus that $3.9 million in non-instructional shared services from CBJ. This realized savings did not mean the district had this money to spend, rather it went against the deficit. Looking at the numbers in more detail, since January for FY24, over $3.5 million savings in resignations, hiring freeze, non-personnel savings, and DEED intensive needs review, plus $3.9 million in non-instructional shared services from CBJ equaled over $7.4 million. Over $7.4 million in savings since January for FY24, but the district has a current projected fund balance not of $7.4 million, but of only $633,185 for FY25. And that's because there was that deficit in FY24. In addition, the FY25 projected deficit was separate. That deficit was addressed separately in the FY25 budget, not through the savings above for FY24, but through consolidation, pupil-teacher ratio, reductions in force, and FY25 shared services. Without the board-approved reorganization and consolidation plan for FY25, severe staff and program-altering cuts would have been required to balance the FY25 budget. One thing we talked about in January was the stark choice facing the district. Keeping all of the buildings going with fewer and fewer students and skeleton crews, or restructuring and reorganizing to maintain opportunities and supports for students. The board adopted reorganization and consolidation plan, repositioned the district on firm financial footing. Consequently, with the governor's approval of one-time educational funds in the FY25 budget, the Board of Education had the opportunity to add back positions, increasing support in classrooms and providing additional opportunities for students. On July 6th, the board met and approved additional teaching positions for Homebridge, our homeschool program, special education, English language, talent enrichment and development, or TED program, reading interventions, and secondary and elementary classroom, special education, general and literacy paraeducators, and classified positions in maintenance, custodial, IT, finance, and school offices. With the approval of the additional one-time funds, the board also voted not to take a loan from CBJ and to hold some of the new one-time money in fund balance to comply with board policies on required fund balance. What I said a minute ago bears repeating. Without that board-approved reorganization consolidation plan for FY25, severe staff and program altering cuts would have been required to balance the FY25 budget. We'd be having a very different conversation right now. I want to end by talking about the district's commitments and steps enacted to avoid future budget issues. First, I instituted a complete review of district financial practices, including outside reviews of district utilization and financial software, staff trainings, and a transition to full integration of finance, payroll, and HR in the district, leveraging our accounting ERP program. Second, the district is committed to using the demographic projections provided by our demographer and to avoid overly optimistic assumptions. We're not going to build a budget on what we hope is going to be there, but what is going to be there. The board is also on pace to build back our fund balance required in board policy to ensure financial stability. I said in January that I believed there was a path forward to exit the financial crisis while still maintaining, even expanding opportunities and supports for students. It has been a Herculean effort, but we successfully executed the steps on that path and can look forward to continuing to provide a world-class education for all of our students in Juneau now and into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Who has questions for Mr. Hauser? Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Hauser, for being here tonight. On a previous slide, you had the total amount that the governor had approved statewide and one-time funding. Do we know yet what Juneau's share of the pupil transportation and the BSA funding?
We do, yeah. Right now, we're close to. We're anticipating $5.2 million of the one-time funding equivalent BSA. And for pupil transportation, we're still waiting for the final numbers. It all is dependent on overall population across the state, but we're anticipating around $270,000 additional for pupil transportation.
No. Madam Mayor, if I might, anyone looking for a copy of this, it is in the online packet under supplemental materials.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. To follow up on Ms. Atkinson's question, is that reflected in that 600 whatever fund balance or not?
The carryover fund balance is from FY24. The additional funds, one-time funds for pupil transportation and the BSA equivalent is for FY25. And so the budget revision that's before the Assembly, the spending authority reduction is in regards to FY24. That additional funding is not included in that. It's for FY25.
Thank you. Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for being here. I noticed on your last slide about kind of commitments to the future. I didn't see continued advocacy at the state level. I assume that continues to be a priority for you all, but just wanted to double check.
Member Wall, thank you for the question through the mayor. Absolutely. We will continue to have conversations about the importance of an increase in the base student allocation to provide stability and give us an opportunity to really plan for the future. It's really difficult to plan for the future when every single year we have to go back to a BSA that is getting close to almost a decade old.
Any further questions? I have a question then. Has our shared financial person been set up? And if so, how's it working? We had talked about sharing 7 between the 2 offices.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll take that one. We just finished classifying that position just this week. And I know Manager Custer and I will be meeting with the superintendent to discuss path forward on that particular position soon.
Okay, and anything else? And then I may have missed it. What's your fund balance for or projected, I should say, for FY25?
Projected fund balance for FY25 right now, off the top of my head, we are looking at a carryover fund balance of $633,000. We had 5.2 for, I'm doing math really quick, sorry. And we had spent about 3.6 million of the add back funding. So 3.6 minus, just watching me do math, sorry. It's just, I can say this, about $2 million.
Okay. Thank you for that. We have a quiet crowd today. I don't have any further questions, so seeing none. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we will go to new business. Item 11, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Resolution 3068.
We made some agenda changes.
Resolution 3068, a resolution deappropriating $4,626,434 from the Treasury for fiscal year '24 school district operations.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
Ordinance 2023-15 appropriated the Juneau School District's FY24 budget in the amount of $96,371,000. Since the adoption of the budget, the district's FY23 audit was finalized and reflected a decrease of nearly $3 million in fund balance compared to projections. Further challenges were identified in the adopted budget regarding material overstatement of revenue and understatement of expenditures. To address these issues, the JSD Board of Education approved an FY24 budget revision on May 14, 2024, reducing the school district's budget authority by $4.6 million for a total revised FY24 appropriation of $91,666. I recommend the Assembly adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak to this resolution? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the Assembly. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly adopt Resolution 3068, a resolution deappropriating $4,626,434 from the Treasury for FY24 school district operations, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Mr. Bryson?
Object for purpose of a question, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Bryson.
What happens to the $4.62 million?
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk, or ask Madam Manager?
There is no realized savings in that $4.6 million. It is just appropriating authority that they don't need that money, so they won't have that money. So this is so that our books reflect actuality so that we're consistent in our audit. So there's no $4 million sitting around, if that makes sense.
A follow-up, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead, Mr. Bryson.
I'm not quite sure how to ask this. So this $4.6 million didn't exist?
Madam Manager.
That probably wasn't the best question. Sorry about that.
So,
I'm confused.
all right. So I'm going to try to help explain this, and then we'll, looks like Angie's coming up.
Ms. Fleck, we'll just go to you. Come on up. Thank you for being here tonight.
My pleasure.
Please state your name and area of town you live in. You have 3 minutes.
I have 3 minutes. I'm happy to be a phone a friend for my city manager. Mr. Bryson, this deappropriation resolution, as the city manager stated, there's not $4.6 million laying around. You can think of it as when the Assembly approved the school district's budget last a year ago in '23. There was an expectation that 96, I think it was $96 million overall between the general operations and their special revenue funds. That was the expenditure authority they needed to run the school district. The Board of Education has, and through the savings that Mr. Hauser just talked about, has reduced their FY24 budget. And so what we're doing with this deappropriation resolution is aligning the school board's action with an accompanying action from you, as the Assembly has the authority to appropriate funds. So it is authority that you gave the school district for FY24 that didn't end up being used. And the reason why this is coming to you is purely so that our Assembly action matches the school board's action with regards to their budget for '24.
Madam Hale.
That didn't
sorry. Madam Deputy Mayor.
Do you don't want to follow up with Mr. Bryson? Or you want to go?
You already got a follow-up. We're going to.
Okay. I was very confused about this earlier, and I'm probably asking this question too simply, but does this mean that the school district is not going to borrow $4 million from CBJ?
Ms. Flick, who's going to take this one?
Assemblymember Hale, this resolution does not mean that. However, as Mr. Hauser provided in his remarks prior, the school district has opted not to take the loan. You can think of this resolution as they had more, you often do de-appropriations when it comes to capital projects. So we might fund a capital project for $10 million, and in the end, we only need $8 million. We de-appropriate that $2 million because we don't need it. This is a similar action. It's just with the school board's, or with the school district's overall FY24 budget.
Follow-up.
Okay, this again might be oversimplifying, but if they hadn't had that 5 million, 4.5 million or something like that, then it may be that they would have needed to borrow that $4 million for FY25. Is that correct? If this savings had not been realized? Or am I just completely, is this apples and oranges?
Assemblymember Hale, I believe that would be apple and oranges. Much of the deficit that the school board, that the school district found themselves with was prior year deficit, so from 22, 23. And as Mr. Hauser just explained, the realized savings that they were able to come by in the last few months of FY24 has allowed them to absolve their fund balance deficit. That's why they don't need the loan. It is related in that they are not spending as much in 24 as they were appropriated.
Thank you. Very good. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try this even simpler, since I don't see any hands. So we approved this school district's budget of 96 million for FY24, but through a combination of accounting issues, they really didn't have that. So they have taken that 4 million off their books, and we just need to follow up. Is that more like it?
Madam Mayor, I believe that's a good restatement.
Okay. All right. So, because they really had 91 million, not 96. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Thank you. Any further questions for Ms. Flicker, Madam Manager? Seeing none? Any? Yes, she moved it. Did you remove your objection, Mr. Bryson?
I absolutely removed my objection because listening to your questions, I finally figured out what we were getting at.
Okay. Any objection? Seeing none, that resolution has passed. Okay, now we're going on to item 12. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is Regulation 20 CBJ AC 40.540 Class C endorsement, commercial passenger vehicle, pedicab geographical area.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Manager.
This regulation would amend the geographical area where pedicabs are permitted to operate downtown. It would expand the area to include the portion of Egan Drive between Main Street and the lighted crosswalk immediately before Glacier Avenue that enables access to the Seawalk. Since the last time this geographic area has been looked at, DOT has upgraded this section of Egan to include an extra-wide bike lane that accommodates pedicabs. A public information and comment meeting was held on July 25, 2024, and no public comment was received. The Assembly Review of Regulations is governed by City Code 0160260. I recommend the Assembly approve this regulation.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any member of the public that wishes to speak for this ordinance? Mr. Quayle. Please state your name and area of town you live in for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
William Quayle, 415 Willoughby, number 305. This does not go far enough. you're gonna do it right. You got, when it comes to changing the regulations, first of all, you did not notify me of this change. Number one, okay, I'm a pedicab driver. I do have them out there every day. And number one, the lights, have it conform to the state regulations. Simple. You just eliminate what it says in the in the certificate of convenience. Two, when it comes to the map, scrap it. Because they can get it so pedicabs can take rides all over Juneau, not just downtown. And, you know, let's say somebody wants a ride to the hatchery, we can give them a ride. But right now, the rules right now, we can't give them a ride. When we have somebody who wants to take somebody to the cemetery, the way the rules are now, they can't take them there. I can't take them to, I have an appointment on the 17th of this month to Treadwell Mine. I can't take them because the existing rules say that. It is really, really important, if you're gonna do this, do it right, amend the rules to, if you're gonna make this change. It's just a matter of scratching out the existing, you know, restrictions that the city put on the state regulations. It's not much of it's a no-brainer, really. But, you know, I honestly, you know, as much as I pay for insurance, I'm not going to screw up. I tell you what, I mean, and I've been an insurance agent 46 years. I'm not going to be screwing up in having any kind of claim. And that's what you're really worried about. And don't worry about it. I'm more worried about somebody falling off my pedicab than, you know, somebody gets screwing up. And when it comes to being hit on the street, every day when I'm working as a pedicab driver, this Marina Way is way more busy than Douglas Boulevard. I mean, in Douglas, it's really.
Are you done? Thank you for your testimony. Any questions for Mr. Crown? Thank you for your testimony tonight. Any other member of the public wish to speak to this or this regulation? Seeing none, we'll move it back to the Assembly. Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the Assembly approve Regulation 20 CBJAC 40.540 Class C endorsement, commercial passenger vehicle, pedicab geographical area, and ask for unanimous consent.
I have to say any objections first. Any objections?
Just an objection for a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. This is directed towards Madam Manager. It's my understanding that a part of the reason we're able to do this is because we have the expanded bike lane. That's what I saw in the report. Do those bike lanes, are the bike lanes of a safe size on Douglas Highway?
Madam Manager.
For that question, you are correct. The reason for this regulation change is the highway has changed. The current route for pedicabs is through, to get to the Whale, which is a popular destination, is through the kind of more narrow streets. So this is, we believe, a safety improvement. The bike lanes not only are narrower, kind of outside this area, but also it's just a lot faster traffic, commuter traffic. I mean, there's a number of safety reasons why we would recommend against expanding the pedicab area beyond the proposal before you tonight.
Thank you. I withdraw my objection.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Mr. Bryson.
Madam Mayor, my question was similar. how much, and maybe just a ballpark percentage, how much did we expand pedicab operations with this safety change? Is there like 10% more area that the pedicabs can operate in? Is it like 15% more?
Who's answering that? Mr. Barr?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say that this does not represent an expansion. It represents a different path, a different and safer path that pedicab operators can now take to get to the whale.
All right, thank you. That answered my question. I'll remove my objection, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any further objection? Seeing none, that regulation has passed. Next, we have an information item, school board recall petitions. Madam Clerk, who's taking that? Madam Manager.
Thank you. I am going to be reading the manager's recommendation that's included in your red folder item. As you recall, we amended the agenda to make this an informational only item. School board recall petitions for D.D. Sorensen and Emil Mackey. On July 11, 2024, the clerk's office completed its review of the two Board of Education recall petitions for D.D. Sorensen and Emil Mackey. With the supplemental signatures submitted on July 1, each petition met the 2,359 signature requirement for certification, and each petition is therefore considered sufficient. Copies of the recall petition affidavits, clerk's letters, and certifications are included in your packet. Because state law, Alaska Statute 29-26-320A, requires the recall questions to be on the October 1, 2024 regular municipal election, this is just an informational item.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Any questions from Madam Manager? Seeing none, we will move on to assembly reports. For the mayor's report, first I want to congratulate Ms. Wall and Ms. Stream on their half marathon success. Good job this weekend. While the rest of us sat around, did nothing, they ran a half marathon. Be advised that several of us will be in Kodiak August 13th and 14th for Alaska Municipal League. Several things going on this weekend. Capitol Park ribbon cutting will be August 3rd from 2 to 5. August 3rd also will be the barbecue for Chief Ed Quinto, who has been in the department probably about 43 years. There's also General Veterans Appreciation Dinner tomorrow at 5:30. The Drag Icons Come to Alaska is Friday and Saturday night. Tickets are still available, I'm told. Family Promise Barbecue is 4 p.m. on Saturday. So lots of things happening that's going on. So I was able to go to the Teal Street Center ribbon cutting. That was a great center. So lots of agencies together collaborating. And I also attended the Celebration of Life for Karen Crane. And I learned quite a bit about how much she affected our state library. So that was nice to hear. So with that, let's go to our committee reports. Madam Deputy Mayor. Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had a committee of the whole meeting on July 15th. We talked about Bartlett fiscal sustainability, we talked about the Eagle Crest gondola, and we talked about the Grants Pass Supreme Court decision at that meeting. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Wall, Finance.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Our July Finance Committee meeting was canceled, but we have one the first week of August. We'll be talking primarily about the hospital, the rainforest recovery and hospice and home health that we directed there. I will also hear from our finance people, our investment folks that are coming to town. And I think the manager has some recommended deappropriations or moving monies around that we'll learn more about.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Mr. Bryson, Public Works.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Public Works and Facilities, and our main topic was the new bus fare app. You'll be able to use your phone to pay on and off the buses. And I know Ms. Hale would be curious The coins will still be available for a little bit longer. That becomes problematic, so that's why they're going to the app, but they know that people like the coins, and so those will be in the system for a little bit of time to come. We kept an eye out for the public transportation for you, Madam Mayor. I also have human resource appointments.
You
if
have
you're
some
ready.
appointments, thank you.
Chaired Human Resource Committee this evening. We have a couple of appointments, one for the Douglas Advisory Board, that named Jackie McMaster to a term beginning immediately and ending September 30th, 2025. We ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes. Before you go on, Mr. Bryson, I believe the doctor has signed off. She's back east, and it's very late there, so. Go ahead, Mr. Bryson.
Yes, Madam Mayor. For the Juneau Commission on Sustainability, we had three appointments, all beginning immediately. The name Jessica Barker, Brennan McCulloch, and Griffin Plush, all three to terms beginning immediately and ending June 30th, 2027. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes.
All right. Better take a deep breath for this one. So we have a motion for the LEPC, which is an extra step. I move that the Assembly Human Resources Committee, I move that the Assembly move that we forward this for approval, the recommendation to forward to the State of Alaska Emergency Response Commission the appointments to the Local Emergency Planning Committee of Jeremy Wesky, Peace Officer Seat 2, to a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2027. Nathan Rumsey, moving from Bartlett Hospital Seat 5A to Bartlett Hospital Seat 5 for a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2026. And Teresa Ross, firefighter EMS Seat 3, to a term beginning immediately and ending December 31st, 2025, and ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Seeing none, that motion passes.
That concludes my report for both Public Works and Human Resource Committee, Madam Mayor.
Ms. Wall.
I forgot that I have another committee, which is the Attorney Search Committee, if you would like me to give that report.
Certainly, I was just going to say, is there any other committees?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So last week, we had three lovely finalists come before the public and before the Assembly for a series of activities and an interview. The board will meet in executive session later this evening to discuss next steps in the process.
Thank you, Ms. Wall, and we'd like to thank you as chair and Mr. Bryson, Ms. Atkinson, and Ms. Hale for being on that committee. All right, Mr. Bryson, why don't we start you with liaison reports and comments and questions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Bartlett Hospital met. They're trying to get a label of critical access, which would mean increased reimbursement for Medicaid and Medicare. Be helpful. They'll know that later on. And they're talking about replacement of a mammography equipment. The Juneau Glory Hall has met. They have been working on a new executive director. And I'm proud to announce that the Glory Hall Board has picked a new executive director. Kaya Quinto will be the incoming executive director. We're really proud of that. I did attend the swearing-in officer that was mentioned earlier that came up from the lower 48, Officer Minor. And I would say that this is a positive thing to our community, that we have created an environment where we are able to attract police force in a time when every police force is struggling to recruit police officers. And then I also attended the ribbon cutting ceremony of the Teal Street Center and saw the power of that organization. That's all I have for you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Bryson. Ms. Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to mention Eagle Crest. Eagle Crest is also going through recruitment right now, lots of transitions happening, and they have several opportunities for the public to meet those folks and give feedback. I'm sure they'd love to have Assembly input. So on Friday, this Friday, public is invited to attend the interviews for the two candidates, which will happen at 1:30 and 3:30 here in the Assembly chambers. So it's going to be similar to the attorney interviews, or some will be in executive session and some will be public. And then on Saturday, the 3rd, there'll be a public meet and greet at Eagle Crest from 10 a.m. to noon. You can also find resumes and backgrounds for the two candidates and provide your feedback on that. The only other thing I wanted to say was just wanted to say thanks to everyone who came and testified today. I know there's a lot of hurt in our community right now, and it's valuable to hear what is on people's mind and ideas on what we can do to move forward. I'm going to quote the petition that said, "Juneau must not be a place where this kind of thing can happen." I think that to be sublimely true, and definitely think we as a body and we as a city, owe the public some response to what happened, not just in terms of investigation and accountability, but also in more listening, more conversation, more dialogue. So happy to talk with folks about what that looks like. But I think we'll fail if we just move on as business as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Ms. Atkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. Wall just expressed what I was going to far better than I would have, so I will just leave it at that. In terms of liaison appointments, the only one of my appointments that met since we last did was Docks and Harbors, and I was not able to make it because we were interviewing attorney candidates at that time, so I have no liaison reports for you today.
Thank you, Ms. Atkinson. Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. I actually wrote out my report and forwarded it to the to Madam Clerk, who sent it all out to you guys. So I will
skip you.
No.
Just kidding. Go ahead.
So I was going to say I can be briefer than I usually am. So yeah, I'll just summarize. Planning Commission has only met once. Emergency Planning Committee also met once. Madam Mayor already touched on Ed Quinto's retirement party. The next meeting for Emergency Planning Committee is going to be on the 14th at noon in the Armory. The School Board Finance Committee has not met. Next meeting will be August 22nd at noon over Zoom. I wanted to mention my community presence. I attended the vigil on July 16th at Resurrection Lutheran, and I paid my respects by lighting a candle and listening to what people had to say. I attended the ribbon cutting ceremony with Madam Mayor and many other assembly members here. And I was given the opportunity, along with a few of us, to participate in the environmental tour of the Wester Dam on the 23rd. I wanted to respond to Ms. Wool and say that I agree that we do owe the community a response, and I'm willing to talk with you about what that might look like. I also wanted to add that I think it really says something for this community that when we experience a tragedy, that the person has a name and people care. I think that speaks well for Juneau. So that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Ms. Hale.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will go back to June 4th because I missed the July 1st Assembly meeting. The PrAC met on June 4th and talked about Marine Park performance space and old playground equipment. When we have old playground equipment, we give it to places like Tennecky, which was kind of neat. 7-2, the July 2nd PrAC was canceled, I think for lack of a quorum. I cut the ribbon at the Ridgeview ribbon cutting, and they've got a great big hole dug for the next building. They're going to have underground parking. So that was actually quite a nice event, and toured some of those units. So that was really great. I attended the Karen Crane Celebration of Life with Madam Mayor, and that was really wonderful, actually, and many, many great tributes to her. Served on the city attorney search committee. I am laying down, you could call it an offer or a challenge. It is Ride the Bus with Deputy Mayor Hale. And I would love to ride the bus with each and every one of you as we go from your home to a place where you're going. So I'm an expert on the bus. So anyway, let's make some dates, and then I'll extend it to the larger community.
Thank you, Ms. Hale. Hopefully we all rise to your challenge. So with that, we are going to presiding officer report. Mr. Attorney, you finally get to speak.
I will do my best to get through this. So this is Appeal 2023 AA01 Carla Hart versus the Planning Commission and Huna Totem. So in the summer of 2023, the Planning...
Oh, excuse me, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Mr. Attorney, it would now be the appropriate time that I would step down from the dais?
Yes.
Okay. The background to this is I hold myself to a high ethical standard. I did see somebody at a social event, and it was a party to this. We did talk briefly. I spoke to the attorney about it, and he said that does constitute an ex parte communication. So I move and ask unanimous consent that I be recused from this discussion.
Any objections to Mr. Kelly's recusal? All right, you can step down for a little bit. Don't go way too far. Carry on, Mr. Attorney.
So in the summer of 2023, the Planning Commission issued a conditional use permit for a new cruise ship dock at the Juneau Subport. Ms. Hart filed a timely appeal, which was assigned to the State Office of Administrative Hearings. The hearing officer held the oral argument hearing in January. The hearing officer issued a draft decision. The Huna Totem Corporation filed an objection, and Ms. Hart filed a letter of support, and the status hearing was held, and the parties submitted additional briefing. Fast forward to June 21st, the hearing officer sent an amended proposed decision, which affirms the Planning Commission's decision. Notably, the amended decision concludes that Huna Totem's application generally conforms to the long-range waterfront plan. That conclusion preserves the Assembly's authority to adopt land use plans that provide direction to the Planning Commission when it is reviewing a conditional use permit. It also preserves the Planning Commission's discretion to determine when a specific permit application generally conforms to a land use plan. If the Assembly adopts the hearing officer's amended proposed decision tonight, the Assembly would then be in a position to facilitate a robust public process regarding the lease of CVJ property. The Assembly has complete authority whether to issue a lease for a new cruise ship dock. If the Assembly adopts or revises the hearing officer's proposed decision, any aggrieved party may appeal to Superior Court. I recommend you adopt the hearing officer's proposed decision in open session.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Any questions before we, Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have a procedural question before we get into this. I just recognize that we only have 5 Assembly members up here, which puts us not knowing anything about how people are going to vote tonight. Is Wahagi here? No. Puts us in a precarious position. I don't know how this vote is going to go, so don't read into my comments too much. But if we are to not be able to, let's say we had a 4-1 vote, can we reconsider a decision that the body makes on a appeal?
Mr. Attorney.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Wall. If there's not a decision made tonight, because there's a split vote, we can figure out options to go forward.
Good question. Any further questions? Ms. Hale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Assembly adopt the hearing officer's amended proposed decision on 2023-AA01 Carla Hart versus PC and Huna Totem proposed decision. And I ask for unanimous consent.
Any objection? Ms. Wall?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am only objecting for a comment because I feel like I must. I will remove my objection, but I just want to say out loud to the public that please do not interpret our decision tonight as a policy decision around the Huna Totem dock. I remember one of my first assembly meetings 4 years ago, we were laying out a process to take on this complicated issue. And I remember Mr. Watt saying, we want the assembly to be deciding, should we have a new dock in Juneau, not can we have a new dock in Juneau. This decision tonight is simply about whether we are legally allowed to. That is our job tonight. But I'm still very much looking forward to the decision, should we, once this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wall. Seeing no further objection, we are accepting the hearing officer's amended proposed decision. Come back up, Mr. Kelly. With that, we will go to continuation of public participation on non-agenda items. I don't believe we have any public signed up for that. So we will go to executive session. Mr. Bryson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the Assembly exit into executive session where we will have continued deliberation on city attorney finalists, and I ask for unanimous consent.
Is there any member of the public that objects to us going to executive session? Is there any member of the assembly that objects to us going to executive session? Seeing none, we'll take 10 minutes and then meet back here for executive session. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
If I might make an announcement for those folks who are on Zoom, we will be ending the public session of the meeting at this time. We will not be coming back into, I believe, is that accurate, Madam Mayor? We're not coming back into open public session after this?
Only to adjourn.
Only to adjourn. Thank you.